funded $12,300 for my sister's baby registry and shower costs. A day before, she texted, "You being there makes people uncomfortable." My mom added, "Try not to take it the wrong way." I didn't. I just froze the lease, pulled the gift fund, and blocked the shared insurance. That morning, they showed up at my door, furious and panicked. I opened it, smiled, and announced. When I got the text, I was standing in line at Target of all places with a cart full of last-minute decorations for the baby shower. It was one of those moments where everything around me just stopped. The message from my sister read, "You being there makes people uncomfortable." 2 minutes later, my mom chimed in, "Try not to take it the wrong way." No joke, no typo, just that. I stared at the screen for a solid minute, rereading those words while the cashier scanned someone's pack of diapers behind me. I remember hearing the beeping of items being rung up, the buzz of conversations, someone laughing nearby. All of it felt like background noise in a scene I wasn't even part of anymore. I didn't respond. I didn't ask why. I just walked away from the cart, left everything there in the middle of the aisle. Paper fans, gold plastic cutlery, pink sashes that said, "Mommy to be," and left the store. In the parking lot, I sat in the car and opened my banking app. I canceled the lease auto payment I had set up for Jenna's apartment. Rent was due in 3 days. I checked the balance on the gift fund I'd set up through her registry platform. Pulled every cent dollar for $500 worth of contributions from my friends and coworkers that I had originally pulled together on her behalf. Then I logged into our shared insurance account, the one I added her to when she lost coverage after her ex failed and blocked her from accessing any of the benefits. It all took less than 20 minutes. None of it was done in anger. That's the part they wouldn't understand. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just made a choice. I remembered every single phone call from my mom in the early months of Jenna's pregnancy, when she was terrified her daughter wouldn't be able to keep her apartment, wouldn't have support, wouldn't have anyone. I remember driving to her doctor's appointment when she couldn't afford Uber. I remembered her crying when she found out the baby was a girl, and me telling her, "We'll figure this out together." But I also remembered how things changed by the 5th month. She stopped saying thank you. She stopped asking. She just expected. The tone of her messages shifted from humility to entitlement. She began snapping at me for being late with the groceries, even though I was footing her bills and juggling my own life. When I offered to help her look into cheaper apartments closer to our parents, she rolled her eyes. She wanted a nice place near her friends with a view because I was her brother and I should. Still, I swallowed it every single time. So no, I didn't take that text the wrong way. The next morning, they showed up. 9:04 a.m. I heard the knock before I even had my coffee. I knew it was them. Nobody else knocks like that. Panicked and angry at the same time. Jenna was in leggings and one of the shirts I bought her, her stomach heavy and her hair thrown into a messy bun. Mom had that look, the look she used to give me in middle school when I missed church. I opened the door, didn't say anything for a second, let them see my face. Then I smiled. Looks like people are uncomfortable with me around. So now I'll really give them something to talk about. Jenna started saying something, but I turned around and left the door open. Let her decide whether she wanted to talk or walk in. Mom followed, of course, already starting with her go-to. "Bill, this isn't the way to handle family." I didn't answer. I sat on the couch and waited. The silence after that was thick. Jenna looked like she'd explode. Finally, she snapped. "You pulled the rent. Are you insane? You know I can't move right now." I shrugged. She kept going, accusing, demanding. Then came the guilt lines. "I'm carrying a child. This is your niece. I don't have anyone else. You said you'd help." And yeah, I had said that, but there was a line somewhere and I finally saw it. "You can go back to Mom and Dad's." I said, "Plenty of space. They'll help you figure it out." That's when Mom lost it. It wasn't even about the money at that point. It was about betrayal. I was the traitor now, the selfish one, the bad guy who dared to say no. I just told them they had until the end of the week to move her stuff out. I even offered to help with the boxes. And I meant it because when someone shows you where you stand in their life, you'd be a fool not to believe them. They didn't leave right away. Mom stood in the middle of my living room like she was about to stage a protest. Jenna kept pacing, muttering things under her breath. I think they both thought I was bluffing, that I'd cave if they pushed hard enough, but I didn't. Mom asked if I could at least keep paying through the end of the month. Said they needed time to figure things out. I told her that was 3 days. Rent's due on the first time to start packing. Jenna started crying at one point, real tears sitting on the edge of the coffee table. I watched her for a moment, but I didn't move. I didn't go get tissues. I didn't lean down to comfort her. I just sat there and waited for the next wave of accusations. And they came right on schedule. She said I was heartless, that I was punishing her for being pregnant, that I was abandoning family. I reminded her I wasn't the one who disappeared 3 months in. That was her deadbeat ex, the guy who ghosted her after the ultrasound and blocked our entire family. I reminded her that I was the one who kept her in that nice apartment, who bought the nursery furniture, who handled bills and groceries while she figured things out. I reminded her that she didn't even want my help in the beginning. And when she changed her mind, she didn't ask. She demanded, "Because you're my brother. That's what you said." Jenna didn't respond. She just wiped her face and stared at the floor. I told them I'd drive over that evening and help her start boxing things. I meant it. I wasn't being cruel. I was just done. The difference matters. That evening, when I showed up at her apartment, the energy was completely different. No yelling, no theatrics. Jenna didn't even open the door when I knocked. Mom did. The place looked smaller than I remembered. Cluttered with baby stuff, bottles still in boxes, a half-built crib, piles of onesies, a rocking chair shoved against the wall. I looked around and didn't say anything. I just got to work. I folded baby clothes, pulled hangers, broke down furniture that I had helped put together 2 months ago. Jenna came out of the bedroom after about 15 minutes. Her eyes were puffy, but she didn't say a word. She sat on the couch and watched me pack. At one point, she asked what she was supposed to do now. I told her again, go to Mom and Dad's. They had space. They'd figure something out. She asked how she was going to raise a baby there. I didn't have an answer for that. That wasn't my problem anymore. We packed until 10 o'clock. I loaded everything into my SUV and Mom's minivan. Jenna didn't speak much during the drive. She kept looking out the window like a kid being dropped off at summer camp she didn't want to attend. When we pulled into the driveway, Dad came out to help. He didn't say much either, just nodded at me and grabbed a box. He'd always been the quiet type, the neutral ground. I appreciated that more than I ever had before. After everything was inside, I stood by the door for a moment. Mom came up and asked if I was going to stay for dinner. I said no. Jenna didn't look at me and I didn't ask her to. I walked back to my car, turned the key, and drove home in silence. That night, I started getting texts from cousins, aunts, even a couple of my mom's friends. All versions of the same message. How could you do that to your pregnant sister? I didn't respond. I didn't need to let them think what they want because I knew something they didn't. This wasn't abandonment. It was liberation. By the next morning, it was clear Mom had made the rounds. I woke up to 23 unread messages and 3 missed calls. None of them from Jenna. 2 aunts, a cousin I barely talked to, even one of my mom's church friends. All of them weighed in like they'd been handed a script and told to memorize their lines. The messages ranged from polite concern to outright guilt trips. She's your sister. This is temporary. She needed you. How could you do that to her now? You knew she was almost due. This isn't the time to be petty. You should be ashamed. Petty? That one stuck with me more than I'd like to admit. It wasn't petty when I was covering over $1,000 in rent each month. It wasn't petty when I spent weekends building furniture and picking out registry items because she didn't want to. It wasn't petty when I spent $12,300 on a shower I wasn't even welcome at. But now, because I drew a line after being told my presence made others uncomfortable, I was the petty one. I didn't answer anyone. I just kept my phone on Do Not Disturb and focused on work. But it was harder to tune out than I thought. Every ping made me wonder how far the version of the story had gone. I knew Mom. She wouldn't lie outright. She'd just edit, omit, paint things in shades that suited the version where her son was cold and her daughter was a helpless victim. The only message that felt like it came from a place of clarity was from Dad. You did more than most would. Let them talk. Give it time. He didn't ask questions. He didn't take sides. Just like always. That text reminded me of the way he used to settle arguments when we were kids. Quiet, to the point. No drama. I read it 3 times and didn't respond. I didn't need to. He'd understand. Meanwhile, Jenna had fully moved back into my parents' house. She was staying in her old room again, according to what I heard through the grapevine. Mom apparently turned the guest room into a makeshift nursery. I could picture it, her pulling out old blankets, smiling for Facebook photos, captioning everything with saccharine hashtags like hashtag #HomeIceEverything and hashtag 3 generations under one roof. None of it mattered. The silence from Jenna didn't surprise me. The way she shut down completely after the move, no texts, no calls, not even a forwarded Amazon package, confirmed what I already knew. She wasn't looking to make things right. She was looking for someone new to blame. A week later, I ran into Amanda, one of her friends, at a coffee shop 2 blocks from my place. I was hoping she wouldn't see me, but she did. She walked over with that awkward smile people get when they know something you wish they didn't. She asked, "So, what happened?" I gave her the short version. No drama, no ranting, just facts. Jenna's boyfriend left. I stepped in, paid for everything. She iced me out. I stepped out. Amanda stared for a second, then said, "She told people you kicked her out because you were mad about a text." I said, "I didn't kick her out. I just stopped paying for her to stay." She nodded slowly like she didn't know which version to believe. Maybe both sounded extreme. That night, Mom sent a single message. "She's due any day now. Thought you'd want to know." I read it once, locked the phone, and went to bed. No flowers, no hospital visit, no last-minute apology. Not because I didn't care, but because I did for too long, too blindly, and I wasn't going back. The photos showed up in my feed on a quiet Thursday night. Jenna in a hospital gown, holding the baby against her chest. Mom beside her, grinning like she'd won something. Neither of them tagged me, but someone else did. Someone who didn't know better. Maybe assumed we were still a normal family. The caption was just emojis. Hearts, a baby bottle, a sparkly star. Comments flooded in. "She's beautiful. Congrats, Mama. So happy for you." No mention of me. Not that I expected it. No text, no call, not even from Dad this time. That was the only part that caught me off guard. I figured he'd at least send a line. "She's here." But nothing. I stared at that picture longer than I should have. My niece, a few minutes into life, already tangled in a web of family dynamics she had no idea about. I should have felt something. Pride, excitement, even resentment. But I didn't. I just felt removed. Like I was watching someone else's story unfold. 2 days later, I got the envelope. Plain manila, no return address, just my name written across the front and handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a folded hospital invoice and a receipt with a note scribbled on the back. "You said you'd help with medical costs. This counts, J. $834. Not a huge amount, but the message behind it felt heavier than the number. She hadn't spoken to me in over a month. Hadn't apologized. Hadn't even acknowledged that what she said, what Mom supported, had consequences. But here she was still expecting. I didn't respond. I didn't text. I just got in my car and drove to my parents' house. It was the first time I'd been there since I dropped her off with her boxes in silence. The front lawn looked the same. The porch had the same loose board that creaked when I stepped on it. But walking up felt different this time, like I was visiting a place I used to live. Dad opened the door and just stepped back, letting me in. He didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Jenna was on the couch with the baby in her arms. Mom was next to her, hovering like she'd been guarding a crown jewel for days. The baby was asleep, tiny and wrapped in a pink blanket. There were balloons taped to the ceiling and half deflated. "It's a girl." Signs in the corner. It looked like they tried to throw a celebration after the fact. I held up the envelope. "This yours?" Jenna didn't say anything. Mom reached for it, glanced at the paper, then handed it back like it was contaminated. "You said you'd help with medical costs." She said, "I did," I answered. And then you said I made people uncomfortable. That canceled the deal. She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. You can't disinvite someone from a part of the family and still expect them to pay dues. Doesn't work that way. Jenna looked at me then. Finally, not angry, just blank. Like she couldn't process what was happening. Like I was supposed to be there out of habit. Whether she respected me or not, I pulled a white envelope from my jacket and walked over to the carrier that sat beside the couch. Set it down next to the baby. There's a $100 gift card for formula, diapers, whatever she needs. That's the last thing I'll give. Mom stood up defensive. You can't punish her for being overwhelmed. You know how much she's been through. She didn't ask me, I said. She demanded. Then she excluded me. Now she wants a bill paid like it's a subscription she forgot to cancel. That was it. I turned and walked toward the door. You're abandoning your niece, Mom said as I opened it. No, I said. I'm letting her grow up knowing the difference between generosity and obligation. Maybe it'll help her turn out better than the rest of us. I stepped outside. The door didn't slam. Dad stood by the window watching. He didn't come out, didn't wave, just watched. I got in the car, pulled out of the driveway, and didn't look back. That night, the text picked up again. New versions of the story had emerged. Now I was the bitter, heartless uncle who wouldn't even hold his own niece. The relative who showed up just to drop off a gift card like it was a tax write-off. Let them talk. That envelope wasn't about money. It was about control. And I wasn't playing anymore. By the end of the week, it was official. I had been assigned the role of the heartless brother, the bitter son, the uncle who turned his back on a newborn. I didn't just get texts. I got full-on paragraphs from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Screenshots made their way to me, too. Someone even shared a post Mom put up that said, "Some people only love you when you're broken enough to need them," with a blurry photo of her holding the baby. Comment section was filled with sympathy and questions like, "Is this about your son?" Of course it was. But the more they talked, the quieter I got. I didn't defend myself. I didn't jump into the comments or try to correct anyone's version of the story. I had already figured out that truth didn't matter to most of them. They like stories with heroes and villains. I just happened to fit the part they needed. Then something unexpected happened. Dad called. He never called. I was the one who reached out first, always. But this time it was him. "I need a hand," he said. "We've got a plumbing issue. The nursery flooded. Apparently, one of the pipes in the basement had burst, and the guest room Mom turned into a makeshift nursery was right above it. The flooring was damp, the furniture soaked, and there was already a smell creeping in. Mold, probably. Jenna was upstairs with the baby, and Mom was in full meltdown mode. Dad just wanted help moving furniture before things got worse. "You sure you want me there?" I asked. "I didn't call them," he said. "I called you, so I went." When I pulled into the driveway, there was no dramatic greeting, just Dad at the side door already holding a toolbox. He gave me a nod, handed me a pair of gloves, and we got to work. No small talk, no emotional landmines, just two people moving furniture, rolling up rugs, hauling damp boxes up narrow stairs. The crib was heavier than I remembered. The same one I had helped assemble 2 months ago when Jenna still texted me emojis and updates about baby kicks like we were best friends. We moved everything into the second upstairs bedroom, the one that used to be our old playroom when we were kids. It was still painted sky blue with patches of peeling stickers on the closet door. As I carried in the last piece of furniture, I noticed a diaper bag with my name still written on the tag from when I bought it off her registry. She hadn't even peeled the label off. Jenna never came down. Mom didn't either. I guess they figured if they stayed upstairs, they could pretend I wasn't there. When we finished, I stood in the kitchen catching my breath while Dad tied off one of the trash bags. "You didn't have to do this," he said quietly. "I know. She's not doing great," he added. "But she doesn't see it. She doesn't have to." I said, "She's surrounded by people who carry her through the storm and then call it independence." He nodded like he didn't agree, but couldn't argue either. I was halfway to the door when I paused. "Do they think I'm just going to show up one day? Pretend none of this happened?" Dad looked at me, then at the floor. They think you're mad that you'll cool off. I nodded. They're wrong, I said. This isn't anger. It's clarity. I walked out. On the way home, I got a voicemail from a block number. The voice was altered, slightly distorted, but I knew it was Mom. Said something like, "You could have done more, and one day you'll regret turning your back on your own blood. But I won't, because what they call abandonment, I call boundaries. And what they call betrayal, I call freedom. Let them rewrite the story." I've stopped reading it. 2 weeks passed and not a word. Not from Jenna, not from Mom, not from anyone still orbiting that household like nothing had happened. The silence didn't bother me. It was actually kind of refreshing. No guilt texts, no financial reminders, no sudden requests wrapped in pretend affection. I figured they'd eventually reach back out, probably when something else needed fixing or funding. But they didn't. What came instead was a package. No return label, just a padded envelope. Inside was the gift card I had left by the baby carrier, along with a sticky note that said, "She doesn't need pity." That was it. No signature, no handwriting I recognized. Probably Mom trying to send one last passive-aggressive message on Jenna's behalf. I stared at it for a minute, then threw it in the drawer next to expired coupons and spare keys. If they didn't want it, fine. I didn't give it for credit. I gave it because it was the last decent thing I could do without compromising myself. Apparently, even that was too much for them. A few days later, I got a message from a mutual friend. Said Jenna had moved out of our parents' house and was now staying with some friend of hers from high school. No job, no plan, just couch surfing with a newborn and a lot of people trying to keep her from hitting rock bottom. I didn't ask why. I didn't reach out. I didn't offer help. Whatever was happening now was the result of a series of decisions I had nothing to do with. But the part that hit me hardest, no one ever admitted anything. Not one person said, "You were right to step back." Not one acknowledgement of the text that started it all. Or the months I kept things afloat while Jenna played victim and Mom played PR agent. I got labeled, boxed, and dismissed. And I let it happen because arguing would have made it worse, because trying to explain boundaries to people who only understand usefulness is like teaching math to someone who refuses to count. The last time I spoke to Dad, he said something I haven't forgotten. "They don't hate you," he said. "They just hate that you stopped giving." And he was right. I wasn't the brother anymore. I was the account, the ride, the man with the answers. When I stopped being those things, I stopped being family. It's strange being the one who walked away and still being called the traitor. But I'd rather be hated for setting limits than loved for losing myself. Now, when people bring up Jenna or the baby in conversation, I nod politely and change the subject. I don't speak ill. I don't retell the story. I just let the silence speak for itself. I've learned that not every apology will come. Not every bridge will be rebuilt. And sometimes the only closure you get is the life you rebuild after walking away. They chose their version of the story. I chose peace, and I'm good with that. 6 months have passed and life's been quieter, sharper, too. I got a promotion at work, picked up running again, and finally started planning that solo trip I used to talk about, but never had time for because Jenna always needed something. Jenna never reached out, not once. But I heard from Amanda again, her old friend, the one I ran into near my apartment months ago. She messaged me out of the blue. She's living with someone new, guys. She met through her old job. "Baby's okay. Just thought you'd want to know." I didn't reply. I saw a photo of the baby by accident. Someone had reposted it, tagged wrong again. She looks like Jenna. Same eyes, same stubborn shin. I stared at it for maybe 3 seconds before closing the app. There's nothing for me in those pictures. What's wild is how fast the family moved on from me. No Christmas card, no birthday texts, like I was never part of it to begin with. And honestly, I'm not angry. I'm just done. Because you only let yourself be the villain in someone's story for so long before you realize you're free. And freedom's not lonely. It's quiet. It's stable. It's earned. Let them rewrite me. I'm not reading their version anyway.